Hi there. Welcome to Lauren's Home, our place to tell our stories. This is Craig. I'm Nanette, and we've been married 37 years, and we have two daughters who are in their 30s. And our firstborn, Bryn, is neurologically typical, I guess you'd say, and she's married and she has two little boys. And our second daughter, Lauren, is profoundly challenged by autism. And she still lives at home, and that's where the name of our channel came from. This is Lauren's Home. Lauren doesn't use the spoken word, or you could say she's nonverbal, or what's the other? Without speech. Some people are getting very fussy about how you say that because, and I guess we should too, maybe, but we're not easily offended, so
No.
we don't care what you say. She does actually have speech, and she does...
Sort of, I'd say she has speech.
Yeah.
I'd say she does at times say words that we can clearly approximate, and at other
Well, she's
times we
approximating
hear a
and we
lot
understand.
Yes, and a lot of times we hear very quiet or almost whisper-like things.
Remember
that
she
you
went through the
think-
phase where she put her hand over her
Yes.
mouth. So now she's not doing that so much, but when she speaks, it's very quiet, and we're trying to convince her to holler because we're hard of hearing. Because a lot of folks with autism have been able to explain that the sound that others make sounds extremely loud to them. So in order to be understood by others, they have to make a booming sound. It sounds booming to them, a booming sound in their own head. So we're trying to encourage Lauren to make a booming sound so we can understand her. Because wouldn't that be lovely if she had speech and could speak to us like typical people do? And she gets closer and closer, I think, right? Thankfully, Lauren is independent in the bathroom. I'm trying to give a sense of her level of functioning. She was day toilet trained at the age of 7. There's a story. And she can eat independently with a fork, but honestly, she doesn't know how to use a spoon. Certainly, we don't give her a knife, and she doesn't know how to use a knife.
And she does use a fork, but if you give her food with chips, she will use a fork for chips.
Yeah, it gets
She
confusing.
doesn't get the change between having a fork and then moving towards a finger food. If you give her all finger food, she's good. If you give her all fork food, she's
That's
good.
true.
So mix the two,
Yeah.
not so...
And think about it, transitions are hard for her. We have lots of stories about transitions being hard for her going through doorways and over vestibules, is that what they're called? Just making that transition from one room to the next through a door. She used to have to do a twirl, sometimes 2 or 3 twirls, but we broke her of that. And certainly that will be a story. Hopefully someday we tell about how we broke her of that. And other than bathroom and eating, she pretty much has no other self-care skills. So whatever we do to take care of ourselves, we also have to do for her. Make sure that she is hydrated, gets water frequently, and is helped in the cleanup process in the bathroom, getting ready for bed, ready for her day, all of those things. And safety. She certainly has no understanding of safety. She does have some understanding of following commands. So maybe she does. Actually, I think she's growing in understanding of safety. We look
very
for cars.
recent, though.
Yeah, we look for cars
In
when
her
we're walking.
33 years, it's taking 32 to kind of get there.
Yeah, that's true. And who knows if she stops just because it's ritual or she understands that there might be cars coming. I don't know. So, but she does copy her mom a lot. Like, you know how moms tend to do a lot of little movement of objects around the house all day? At least that's what it must look like to her, putting away laundry and taking care of things and cleaning up things. And she does do that. It's almost like she has a job around the house because she keeps us in line, doesn't she?
Yes.
I mean, she does. We have to have a very neat house. Not because we're so neat. We are pretty neat. But she'll make sure it's neat. So she does do that. She keeps us on our toes with her orderliness. And wait, now we're not going to talk about it being OCD or some kind of obsession, but we might get into that in future episodes. And that's why this channel is called Lauren's Home. Everything we do in our home, every choice that we make, it's impacted by Lauren's needs. to give her best life and us our best life, right? We've had to design our lives, our home around her needs. And that's what this channel is about. We're
Yes.
trying to share this with you.
Every update, every modification has to have her needs in mind.
That's right. There have been a lot of modifications over the years. So I described Lauren as being challenged profoundly by autism. And when we use the word profoundly, we mean that it affects every aspect of your life. And I mean every single one. What you foresaw, or what we foresaw, I don't want to speak for anyone else, everything that we foresaw as our future life when we got together, when we were first married, everything absolutely changed upon her diagnosis. And I guess we'll just use that as a solid dividing line, her diagnosis, as opposed to when we first saw symptoms of her being different. And even it might have been a little bit later, because big deal, we have this diagnosis. We don't know what it's going to bring, how much worse it's going to get, right? But
I would say it probably was the diagnosis, because that totally changed our focus. And
that's true. But many people get diagnoses of autism, and then their child isn't as profoundly affected as Lauren became. And she didn't start out that way. She was born a typical baby, super healthy. She became autistic later, and we certainly will be telling that story about how she changed and how we found out. Other folks who receive a diagnosis of their kid having autism, let's say a kid who speaks and goes to school and maintains their classroom level, that's a different story than we have to tell. In our life, in our home, it impacts literally everything. Everything. There's nothing it doesn't touch. Every decision that we make. Even when we go to the bathroom, whether we leave the door open. Like literally, right? How we go to the store, when we go to the store. Everything. What we can hang on the walls. Everything. In fact, I find it a challenge to try to think of something that does not impact Lauren's existence, like what makeup I put on during the day. Maybe there is, like maybe what blush I choose has nothing to do with Lauren's autism. There might be a few things. I might be wrong, but yeah. The clothes I buy at the store, though that I do need retail therapy, is affected by Lauren. So you'll soon see how much it impacts our life. That truly it impacts just about everything, and our choices by the stories we tell here, right? Yeah. And we are not only Lauren's parents, but we have to be her therapists too. There were some therapists in her life and some teachers, but she's now in her 30s, so it's been a long, long time before we've truly had helpers guide our way in trying to give her the most independence possible, the most speech possible, the best life possible. But they're not too much a part of her journey anymore. So you don't, after you exit those resources, say, well, you're just stuck with us now at this level for the rest of your days. No, it is still our calling as her guardians and the people who love her most on this earth that we do everything we can to encourage her to her greatest level of independence and to her greatest level of joy in this life and in this world, to her ability to be able to interact with as many people as possible successfully. Yeah.
And to ensure she gets things like we go to the store, we get an outing in the community.
Those are examples.
We do have friends that come in, or friends we can interact with that know her. So it's not only giving those things, but it's also making sure she gets exposure to the environment, to people, to...
Those are the things, the community outings and things that bring her joy that we don't even think about. They're so natural to most people, right? Of course you interact with others. Of course you enjoy buying new things at the store and seeing things on store shelves, or, just all the things that give us pleasure. We have to do our best to somehow figure out a way to, well, first of all, can we have her participate in certain things, or many things she cannot successfully. Like, we like game nights. Lauren does not like game nights because there's just no understanding of how games, why are they having this conversation that has nothing to do with anything I understand, because she's not understanding the rules of the game. So there's certain things she can't participate in, and travel's very difficult for her, and so there's a lot of limitations. But yeah, so we have to do the best we can within what we have to work with, right?
Yep.
Including her capability, her
Yes.
ability to understand, her ability to tolerate. And we'll talk about in future episodes what happens when she doesn't tolerate things. There's certainly a behavioral component to autism. You may think of as tantrums or meltdowns. I don't like to call them that. She doesn't do them because she's tired and just ornery because it's been a long day. No, typically her only way to express something that she has found no other way to express successfully, because she's limited in her ability to communicate. So if she has a stomach ache, or feels an illness, or is afraid, or something's hurting her ears because it's so loud, but it's not to ours, and we don't have the same sensations in our bodies, she has no way to say, Mom, Dad, I hurt. Mom, Dad, I'm scared. Mom, Dad, I'm freezing cold. So if you couldn't communicate those things, what would you do? Yeah, that's what she does to get attention of the people around who are supposed to take care of her. So, like I said, they look like maybe meltdowns. They can be scary. They look like tantrums. They can be scary. People can empathize by saying, oh, I remember when my child was 2 years old or 4 years old and did that in the grocery store. And it's sweet. They're empathizing.
Yes.
But Lauren's at least, 5'7",
Mm-hmm.
and she weighs more than me. So it's not quite the same thing. And we do not have the power to look at it as this too shall pass, or we don't have the blessing of thinking this too shall pass. So when folks say that, and perhaps they're way past that era of their life, it's kind of like, yeah, did you do it for over 30 years? Did you have that situation go on and on for over 30 years? And our stories are impacted by, or our life are impacted by, the fact that we imagine, I'll say we know, but we don't know anything, right? We don't know the future, but we imagine that there will be no break from this until the day of our death. And we have to prepare for her future.
Yeah. And one of the things we'll talk about too is, in all those things, and we've talked about, is how we need to set our expectations of what happens, or better said, how we define success. So many times you come up to me and say, okay, we're going to do something, and you'll come up and say, and here's the definition of our success. And it's so helpful to really level set, what does success mean? Where's that bar?
Right. Because our expectations are usually, or should be, different from the average person's expectations.
Yes.
We certainly have stories about that we'll share. Somehow we celebrate life, even though maybe the mark that we hit is very different from what other people expect or desire or want, or would be frustrated by if they couldn't achieve it. But we got God, we got each other. Our Lauren is happy and healthy most of the time. We have our precious older daughter and grandchildren. So, yeah, it's different.
Definitely different.
So on this channel, we're going to tell you how we do that. Give Lauren her best life, while also giving Craig and I our best lives, and despite its many limitations. I wanted to talk about how we were called to start this channel many years ago. I bet it's been 11 years ago we first started talking about this, because I'm
Wow.
picturing a certain place and date. But then, but it's been several years, so let's say 4 to 5, that we knew it was like solidly like God saying, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. It has taken a tremendous amount of patience and frustration, because like, no, you're not opening the door to this possibility, God. I have this fabulous friend who's a very faithful lady who said to me once that when God calls you to something, he doesn't then leave the door locked and expect you to bang really hard until your knuckles are bleeding in order to open that door. If he calls you to something, the door will be ajar and you will just gently push it in and be able to walk through it. And I have used that as a guiding principle so often. And it's literally only the past few months that this door has been ajar and we've been able to push it open and make this first episode happen. And literally over the last year, the Lord's put so much in our lives which have given us more expertise and understanding of how to make this channel happen.
Right.
So that's cool. But we had to answer questions like, I have some written down here, sorry, I have to read. When do we record when Lauren's care is all day long? Where can we set up and record quickly and easily while Lauren is content? Yes, she's currently content in another room watching. What did you put on for a video?
Watching Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
Yeah, it's not Christmas time, but that's one of her favorites. Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Hey, can't beat claymation, right? How about where can we leave it set up so she has no access to the equipment? If we got to do it fast, where do we leave it set up so we can do it fast? Because the requirements of caring for her are 24/7, 365. So we don't need an extra burden of a whole bunch of time to set up a little studio. And
that we can leave up where she doesn't have access to it, because she will put everything we put up away neatly,
where she thinks it
believes
belongs.
It goes. So,
yeah, it's interesting when new things come into the house, where kind of watching her. Where's she going to put it? Is she going to accept it into, like if she gets a new toy for Christmas, is she going to accept it amongst all her old toys, especially stuffed animals? Will it be invited to the pack, Or will she literally toss it in my bedroom like, this one does not make the cut, In fact, there's a little Snoopy up there, and that's one she rejected at Christmas, but I love that Snoopy. I know the heart of the person who gave it to her, and I have a few other in my bedroom that they were rejects, right? They were not allowed to be put in that place.
So with the theme of what she's watching, does this make this the island of misfit toys?
Oh my gosh. I didn't even think about that before. A sweet. Anyway, so impossible, right? But God. And it's taken years of us becoming different people to be able to be the people who can be here sitting in front of you sharing our stories of healing. There's a lot of stories of healing we can tell, right? Mm-hmm. We've been very sick. We've been bigger too. We've lost a lot of weight. We've been sick. We had a lot of chronic diagnoses. And over the years, we've healed Lauren of some of her chronic diagnoses and ourselves as well. So those are some of our stories too. Chronic anxiety, chronic stress, and the Lord has brought us to this place where those are overcome to an extent that we have the peace and the freedom to now come here and share our stories. And we're hoping that our stories represent stories of other families like ours. And we know, especially right now, it's very controversial to speak about autism, because one person's autism is, like our Lauren, who is extremely disabled and requires not just one caregiver, literally two. Like, it takes the two of us. We don't know. We have to stay healthy and keep each other alive, because we do not know how we would do this without a helpmate. The discouragement would be so strong. So that's the extent of our daughter's experience with autism. We have friends that have children with autism who speak, some who drive, one who flies a plane, graduated from high school, considering college, going to college. That's not our experience. And we'll try to always respect that name, the autism spectrum, is applied to a lot of people. I hope to talk about, too, what's the difference and how did that happen? That this one diagnosis could be applied to so many very different people. I mean, is it a disease, or is it just an umbrella like anxiety or something? You know what I mean? What is it? Well, for our daughter, it is a profound disability. a physical disability that has caused physical disease in her and something that's impacted, damaged her brain. And I do believe that if she were on this earth for 500 years, which please Lord, no. But if she were, there is so much healing going on in her life. That's how much it is a disease, and that you can, like you overcame your pre-diabetes or you're overcoming your high blood pressure. It is a disease, and that you can do things lifestyle-wise to overcome at least many aspects of it, if not all of it. And she progresses in so many little ways all the time that that's what I like to say. If she lived to be 500 years, no doubt, she would be like a typical person. However, in the probably 80 years that we have to work with here, maybe not. I pray for a miracle. There's no reason not to pray for complete healing of her. But likely that won't happen. Likely she will always have that label and those challenges that come with autism. But not everybody has those challenges. So when we speak about autism, it will be about our daughter's specific story. But hopefully it will enlighten folks about autism in general. When she was first diagnosed especially, but over the years, over all the years, I read information about ADD, ADHD, tics, which she does have a diagnosis now of tics, but that came later, OCD, anxiety disorder, that applied to her, that helped me understand her because she had some of the symptoms, the behaviors of some of these problems. So when we're talking about autism and you're like, my person doesn't have autism, or that's not the autism we have in our house, well, guess what? There still might be something, some technique, some fun adaptation to our house that we made that's going to be like, bing, eye-opening, that even if you are not experiencing the extreme challenges that we are, wow, that would have made my life easier if I'd known about that, because my child, let's say you have a high-functioning child with autism, but you cannot keep a seatbelt on him. We got to solve for that. How about if you just have someone in your house who's OCD and likes all the light switches in the up position at all times? That's kind of expensive. We know. Our utility bills will tell you how profoundly autistic Lauren is, because water on all the time, light switches in the upper position all the time. Well, guess what? We have a help for that. So when we say we're talking about autism, and even if you are talking about autism, but it's a completely different autism, there still might be a help in something we say for whatever your challenges are. And if you're not dealing with any of this, but you just like hearing our stories, and we're going to talk probably about how to have a good marriage, 37 years, still going. We signed up again for next year too, right? We did. Oh. Yeah. And parenting. We got a lot of parenting tips because boy, oh boy, parenting's tough, and especially nowadays, right? So anyway, we hope to represent a lot of the folks out here who, over the years, I came to realize how underrepresented parents of kids with disabilities are, specifically autism, especially autism. They are not marching on Washington for the changing of what we spend money on to help their types of problems. They're not running down to the school or, spending a lot of time making lots of appointments to deal with doctors or teachers who are perhaps treating their child inappropriately. I mean, a lot of them are, but it's really, really hard because you are overwhelmed, perhaps you're overwhelmed. The demands on you are so much greater than the average parent that if I call it the hidden population.
I agree.
And this show, Craig and I, in fact, there's a joke amongst our friends over the years where if we haven't seen each other in a long while and then we're seen together, they're like, oh, he does exist. We were beginning to think maybe you had, taken him out or something. Or it's a phenomena to see both of us in the same place at the same time without Lauren.
Right.
And we have very few friends who socialize with us with Lauren. So even with Lauren, people just don't see us together because one stays home as the caregiver while the other goes and runs the errand or does the fun thing.
Right.
For example, if there is a family wedding, a family funeral, likely only one of us will go.
Right.
That's a huge impact to having a child this demanding.
Yeah.
Having a diagnosis that requires this much responsibility. So anyway, we hope we honor all the others who have a similar journey or on a similar journey, who are similarly isolated, who similarly just want a voice out in the world to represent them. We hope we can do everyone some honor. This is our specific story, so we can only speak the truth as it applied to us, but we'll try to have a heart for everyone else's story. But we hope we can, first of all, always apply dignity to Lauren's experience and hopefully somehow dignify all of our experiences, bring attention and honor to what we're all going through, and ultimately honor and glorify God with your takeaway. Because without God, without the Holy Spirit, without surrender, without His holy word, without our friends who have faith in our lives, without us learning to pray with each other, right?
Yep.
All loud, on a regular basis, we wouldn't be here in front of you. We wouldn't have a success story. We wouldn't have enough success stories to be able to share any story, right?
Yes.
All right. Got anything to add?
So I think one of the stories that we will tell is I had joined a men's group. Some men actually came, visited our house while you were traveling. And the next time I went to a meeting, I had several of them ask me, why are you so darn happy? Why are you so joyful with everything that's on your plate? And I think that's one of the stories we're going to tell.
That was after they came to visit?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. I never really paired those two.
You were away, and I said, I can't join.
And they said,
we'll come to your house.
You cooked them
great.
breakfast.
I did cook them breakfast.
That was amazing. That was a high time, man.
They got to experience Lauren and Lauren's needs while having our prayer group and our men's group there. And then the next meeting said, how are you so joyful? How are you so happy with everything that you do?
Oh, I'm going to love this channel because I'm going to hear these stories. I've kind of forgotten a lot of them. Yeah. I'm so excited. Okay. Alrighty, so this is probably long enough. So we're just going to say, hopefully you liked what you heard today. And if you did, please give us a like.
Hit subscribe.
And then we will let you know when another video comes out. Or at least there'll be a notification in your YouTubes. I guess that's how it works. And your YouTubes. And And, in comments, if you want to know something specifically about autism, about just, jump the gun. You don't got to wait for what we're going to tell you. Maybe you'll encourage the next conversation about what we need to talk about next. So thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate it. So,
bye.
Bye. That'd be bad if we have an edit just to go, bye.